You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den, episode 14 with Julie. Why am I a badass in every part of my life except for dating? Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Dating Den. So today I have a guest in the den named Julie, and I love doing these coaching episodes because so many of us are out there dating, and I know I was like this, where, we know what we do. We sort of feel like everyone must do it. And we don't realize the impact that it's having really on our relationships, because it's so much easier to sort of blame the circumstances and look at dating sites or where you live or even things that happened in your past. So what we hope to do here today with Julie is to really understand why she's feeling stuck and help her kind of make a breakthrough that she can use to start and get out there and really start dating some better quality guys. So before I describe what's going on with Julie, let me just say hello and welcome. Hey, Julie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you are here. This is so fun for me. Maybe not so fun for you now, but...
No, I think it's going to be good.
Okay, good. So let me tell all of you a little bit about Julie. Julie was married for 4 years to a man who was an alcoholic. And so it was a bad relationship. And unfortunately, he passed away just 2 days after their divorce was final. They were living in the U.S., but they relocated to Europe for her career. And she's still in Europe, which is very cool, and living her life. But she's really afraid to let herself be vulnerable. And I know a lot of you can relate to that. She also feels like she's very stuck in her head. She knows she shuts down when she really likes someone. And what I love about Julie and the reason why she's here is because she's aware that if she doesn't make some changes, it's going to be really hard to really recreate that amazing relationship that she wants, because she's living her life. She's got a cool career. She's doing it up in Austria. But this guy thing is holding her back. So welcome to the Dating Den. And let's just get started right away, Julie. So,
All
right, I'm really curious about this because I want to get to know you a little bit. But it takes a big kind of an adventurous soul to, pick up, leave our culture, leave America, and, go live abroad. So what caused you to do that? I mean, why is that something that's easy and fun and you love?
That has never been something that intimidated me. I have a lot of confidence in traveling and relocating and experiencing other cultures. And then I have sort of a lack of confidence in other areas of my life. But I lived in Europe as an intern in 2004, and I loved it. I also lived in Canada for a year and spent some time in the UK. So when I saw this job opportunity, I was kind of looking at that point in time. It was clear that my marriage was not going the way we wanted anyway. And we were both looking for ways that we could improve the situation. And instead of really working on the relationship, we didn't identify that as the reason of the problem. So we thought that it was external circumstances. And so we both thought if we could find a dream job and one partner could be totally fulfilled, then that would improve the relationship. And obviously that crashed and burned. But it's sort of how I ended up here. And I love it here. So I would like to stay.
Okay. So you've got a lot of confidence in sort of going around, traveling, being in unfamiliar territory. Because traveling abroad and living abroad is, you're basically saying, I choose to just be uncomfortable. I kind of find there's some fun in that for you, right? Like there's a thrill. It feels good. It feels exciting.
Actually, I think it's more about just broadening horizons. Like, I feel uncomfortable, just like the next person. For me, it's more social settings. And I have some frustrations about language barriers and, just general slight cultural differences here. But for me, mostly it's about new experience and new horizons. So I don't notice so much the discomfort part of it, actually.
Okay, that's great. So it's about new experiences and new horizons. So let's
Yes.
talk about then relationships and dating. So you go out on a date and you really like the guy. What happens?
Well, if I really like the guy, I hang back and wait for him to convince me that he also really likes me and that it has a chance to work. And I don't think that's very. It's like I'm not participating. It's like I don't meet him halfway.
So are you like more aloof? Like, what do you do actually? Like when you're on that date, he's really cute, he's really funny. He's, what are you actually doing that's the hanging back? How do you not meet him halfway?
I think too much. Instead of just responding, authentically, I think about what's the right answer. And so it slows down the conversation a little bit, and it makes it very much about me, because I also feel self-conscious if I just ask him questions. Then it seems like an interview, and I'm not a checklist kind of girl, really. I'm pretty open-minded, but I do find it's pretty rare that there's a guy that I just instantly really like.
Okay, so you start to get in your head, you get nervous. That lack of confidence translates into trying to figure out who he wants you to be or who you should be, and then you're trying to adjust and not really coming from that authentic place.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes me kind of clam up completely. So, those little signs that they give you if a date's going well, like they touch your shoulder or they want to hold your hand or something, like I don't reciprocate them if I'm stuck in my head.
Okay. And let's see, I have two questions I want to ask you. I'm trying to think which one would be better served first. So what do you think a guy would perceive when you don't meet him halfway? What do you think he could be making up about you when you're kind of hanging back?
Well, I used to think that they thought I was intimidating, but then I decided that was crap.
Okay.
So, now I think either I don't seem emotionally available for various reasons, or they think I'm not that interested in them.
Okay. And did you ever learn or play that like hard to get game? Like, oh, the more unavailable I am, the more guys are supposed to be into me, so I should be aloof. Was that ever part of your jam?
To be honest, I only did it because I thought that's what we were supposed to do. Like, I don't enjoy that part of it.
Okay.
I don't enjoy a cat and mouse type of. I don't enjoy games in general, to be honest, when it comes to relationships.
Yep.
But I do have a really busy schedule, so I think I can come off a little bit like the female version of a player.
Yeah. Okay.
But that part is authentic. The busy schedule is unfortunately somewhat work related.
Okay. All right. Well, I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that. So you are truly busy, and it's just that can be a great mask, right? For that hanging back. You're like, oh, phew, I actually am really busy, right? So it's kind of an easy place to hide. So,
oh, yes.
Okay. So I'm just trying to imagine you're out on this date, and I'm seeing this part of you, which is very bubbly and intelligent and, outgoing. So you're not that version of yourself. Tell me why you don't fall into that same place you do when you're out, like, living your life abroad, because it is a new experience, right? And it is, you're meeting this new person. I mean, imagine, we just make this, like, let's call him John, is a different country, right? And you're just having this opportunity to do an evening trip to John. So why don't you feel that same comfort? Why isn't it not just like a new experience for you? What's different?
Because a country can't reject you. I mean, I guess technically they can, but that doesn't happen very often. I think in social settings, I'm very, in high school, I was never one of the cool kids. I was always a sciencey, busy person who never really fit in. And I I just assume that that's kind of the default.
Okay. So there's a couple things going on here. And one of them is the perception that you have, right? The filter that you have of how you see life. And so all of us have different lenses. And I know that you've been doing a lot of work in personal development. So you've probably been tuning into this kind of concept, right? So,
Right.
Because there could be someone listening right now that would be like, freaking countries reject people all the time. I mean, right? Like I go somewhere and, someone gives me an evil eye because I can't speak their language. And, I don't know how to communicate about this. And, this feels awkward or uncomfortable and I get lost. And right. So it's very easy if you're a different person from different experiences to feel like, traveling abroad is the scariest thing. So for you, it feels like rejection is looming, is possible. So tell me about that. Where did you learn that, rejection, so to speak, is something that isn't safe for you emotionally?
That's a good question. I mean, as I said, certainly growing up, I really didn't fit in. Like we had to have special names on our Powder Puff football jerseys, and mine was GPA. So I was always kind of just not in I was never one of those kids who was invited to high school parties. I didn't have a boyfriend. I mean, I didn't have a boyfriend until I met the man I married, basically. And I was 30, I think, then.
Okay.
And I do also think that there was a decent amount of emotional abuse in that relationship. And I think that maybe amplified some of my fear of rejection or not feeling like I can satisfy a man or be a good partner.
Okay. So for those of you who have been following along on some of these episodes, there's a pattern here going on, Julie, right? Like a lot of women that I talk to they're smart. They are GPA, right? They're doing really well in school. They translate that into their careers to doing really well. They get a lot of validation about their worthiness and value professionally. Does that relate to you? Does that resonate?
It does.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this comfort zone. And I would also bet that you get a lot of validation. And even when we just first spoke today, I was like, wow, that's so cool. You're doing all this amazing stuff in your life, in your career, and you're living abroad. So you probably get a lot of validation in that way, right? Career, adventure, travel.
Yeah, you mean from myself, personal validation?
Probably from other people too, externally.
Actually, the travel thing, I get a lot of. If it's new people, then yeah, you get a decent amount of superficial, oh yeah, cool. But my family and people that know me are either unconditionally supportive, but more frequently I get a lot of, oh well, your life is just easy, and oh well, it's just you just get isn't it just great for you?
And tell me more about that. What is that? Oh, isn't that just great for you? Because in your voice there's a little sarcasm.
Yeah, and I get a lot of comments oh, when do you ever work? And, oh, I wish I could just travel around Europe all the time like you and not really work. And, little things like that. And I know it's totally like the Facebook society derivative where you see the pictures of someone's trip and you assume that their life is perfect all the time and you don't think they ever have any stress or anything. So it's not real, and I try not to take it on, but it is kind of the opposite of validation. And I would say it's probably about half and half of people who are like, oh, cool. And people who are like, oh, well, don't you just get everything?
Okay. So the life is easy thing for you.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like a little bit of a rejection, right? Of you as a person or the choices you're making, or do you not feel it that way?
I do kind of feel like it's a rejection of, that's what I have to offer, is to share with people the things that I see and the places that I go, and not in a condescending way, but in a hey, this was a really cool visit and you should come here, or hey, look at, here's historical pictures of the Berlin Wall that you might otherwise not see, or, some kind of context that would be interesting to a lot of my family either won't travel anymore because of health and age related reasons, or doesn't have a ton of interest in spending the money to travel significantly.
Okay.
And so I mean, I don't put a lot of captions on. It's not like this big, oh, we were at a luxury hotel and oh, we ate at this restaurant and oh, it's really just more like, these are the cool things that we saw. I hope you enjoy.
Okay. And do you feel like, so now that you sort of have an awareness of how people react to some of your stuff, do you feel like you're trying to really create that image, let's just say online, right? Like you're really aware of what other people think. You don't want to like piss people off. You don't want to look like it's too much. So are you trying to like kind of manipulate a little bit, be more low key intentionally?
No, I don't think I am. I think that I just know when I get responses like that, just to kind of let it roll off, because, it's kind of like rejecting a positivity,
Okay.
It's like rejecting something good just because it's something good.
Right. Okay. So here's this, like, I see you right now as like a bar stool, Julie. All right.
Okay.
Because, you've got this lifestyle that you have, and you're totally able to like not take that rejection and not see it as any kind of reflection of your value or worthiness or who you are as a person. And you're not really modifying yourself or trying to manipulate that so that people will like you or respect you, right? So that's kind of
right.
One leg of the stool. And then you have this other piece around, here I am sort of in my career, and I've always sort of been this science-y person, but I love what I do, and I feel really good about it, and it's the best thing ever, right? And so I don't really see you manipulating or doing any of that kind of thing either here in your career. You're just sort of like, here's who I am, here's what I do, right? So
well,
yes, no.
Yeah, mostly. I don't know how much it factors into the session, so I'll just shortly add that I'm actually in a transition phase in my career right now. Which is exciting, but also really challenging and largely new. So I'm stepping out of clinical medicine and moving into research in the next 6 to 9 months. So it's like a new country.
Okay. But it sounds like, just from your voice and your tone, you're scared of it, but you're like, this is who you are. You're totally down with this new country.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Okay, great. Okay. So here's your bar stool. And then the third leg is dating.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's wobbly. Like, it's like the leg of the stool that's like 2 inches shorter, right?
Yeah, if I'm honest and if I want to try to get what I want, then yes.
Okay. So rejection is, I always tell people, like, my job is to make you feel rejection proof, because really when you're in that place of confidence and you've really literally demonstrated it in these 2 other areas of your life, you're rejection proof, right? You're confident. It's impossible, really. You might hear it and it might feel like shit for someone to be sarcastic, but you're like, let it roll off. Like, I'm doing me and I'm okay with that. You do you, right? But when it gets into the shorter little leg of your bar stool, the filter that you have on is, if he doesn't like me, that means I'm not enough. I'm not fill in the blank. If he doesn't like me, then it must be true that.
For me, it's more, if he doesn't like me, then I can't have the relationship I want. I can settle for something less, but I can't have the big relationship that I want.
So you do what I call going global, which is
okay.
a perfect metaphor for you. Right? So this one guy doesn't like you, and you're like, bam, like you made it like a global truth. Like, oh, he doesn't like me, so therefore I'll never have what I want.
But that's only certain guys. That's not every guy.
The one that you like.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all that really matters.
Okay.
right? I mean, so what happens when there's a guy you don't like who's into you?
Well, I tend to be open-minded. Like, I don't like being that person, there's not that many. So if a guy that I'm physically attracted to is also intellectually inspiring to me, then yeah, pretty much the switch is flipped for me.
Yep.
But I don't, or in the past, I haven't always met men like that very frequently. And so if there's a guy that is interesting to talk with and I might later on become attracted to, and he's interested, I'll stick around to see what happens.
Well, and is that because there's sort of nothing on the line? You don't feel that. Like,
exactly.
Right. So the stakes aren't that high. So you're like, whatever. I'll just be me. If he likes me, fine.
Exactly.
But then what happens? Those things just kind of peter out because why?
They don't even necessarily peter out, but they can never turn into something that isn't either codependent or where they don't resent me. Those are the guys that tell me quite frequently that I'm too much. I talk too much. I work too much. I think too much. I do too much. I just am too much. And I think it's because I'm not choosing the right people.
So that means, tell me more about that. Because what about those guys makes you be, quote unquote, too much?
Well, because I'm myself, but I don't think we're a match. So the vibrations don't fit. And that's why it seems like I'm too much. I mean, maybe for that person, I am too much. I'm independent. I'm strong-willed. I'm busy, and even if I'm not working, I travel a lot just for fun. Like I'm always doing something.
Okay. God, there's so much possibility in this conversation, Julie. Because there's, and I'm gonna sort of like pivot just for a second. So pause and pivot here to the left with me.
Cool.
I'm just gonna give you a little tip. One of the biggest turnoffs to a quality guy is the B word, meaning I'm really busy.
Yep.
Okay. No, it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be busy. It's just for men, so they have their own little filter. And when they hear busy and they see busy, they make up their story that there's no time. That they will never get they'll never get attention. This person doesn't really have the time, interest, availability to really be there for me. And so that's a super big turnoff. And really high quality guys who also don't like to play games, they're not going to work that hard if you're not making time for it. Mm-hmm. So just a quick tip is, even if you are really busy, changing the languaging of it can have a big impact.
Okay.
So so let's say, Brad asks you out and you got a lot going on. What's the languaging that you would say? How would you say it?
Usually I would say I'm available these 2 nights this week, or I'm available this weekend, or I'm available next week. What would work for you?
Okay. So you don't say I've got a lot going on. I'm really busy. I'm going out of town. I've got this. You just tell them when you're available. Usually
if I'm going out of town, I'll tell them that I'm going out of town. And sometimes I'll tell them if I am on call, because there's just nothing I can do about that. And I've had some bad experiences with that. So I kind of like to be upfront about it and know beforehand if it's going to be a problem.
Okay.
Because then it's a weed out. That's a no-go.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to give you a little like polishing of that. It's great that you're not using the words "I'm really busy." So that's awesome. The thing that's missing is that you're not really communicating that this person or dating or finding a relationship is actually important to you. Mm-hmm. And so it's, I always talk about leaking, and this is like an unconscious leaking. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and it's a opportunity to be vulnerable, which makes sense why you don't do it, typically normally, because being vulnerable is, scary for all of us. So my sort of suggestion would be, hey, Brad, I really want to make time for you. And I'm so, excited that you want to see me. Your version of some sort of acknowledgement. I really like you. I really enjoyed our last date. I really want to spend time with you. So here's when I'm available. What can we do to make that work?
Okay.
Right. So it's kind of like giving him that sign that you're interested and that you're willing to sort of make it a priority.
Right.
So when I say that, does anything come up for you? Any thoughts, feelings?
Well, there's this like little twinge of, oh, that's vulnerable, but I've in the last week's been really working on that, so that's not so far away from normal now, so that I'm okay with that.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So now, so what if it was a guy that you really like?
I could say that to a guy I really like.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, why is it I think and not I know?
Well, because I haven't had the opportunity yet, or maybe it would be better to explain it is there's no person that fits into that context that I could practice saying that to now.
Right now. Okay, so right now there's not a guy that that you like.
No, there was, but that's been a little while now. So.
Okay. All right. So, so let's go back to the conversation about rejection.
Yeah.
So, rejection proof is that confidence like you have in the other sort of legs of the bar stool. So, what would it take? What's missing? What would it take for you to feel rejection proof with a guy that you really like?
What comes to mind, honestly, is practice. I don't know if that sounds naive, but I think that might be at least a significant component.
Okay, so practice means in order to not shut down, to not sort of be in my head, I have to be around a guy that I like.
Well, I even have been trying to practice it in the last weeks, just in general, like on a date. Just practice little ways to be more vulnerable and not worry about what happens. Like sharing, a lot of times when you're online dating, people ask about your background, and I used to not tell them because my past relationships are a pretty big story, pretty big red flag for some people that it's like instant baggage.
Right.
But if somebody continues to ask me, then now I share the story and I don't worry too much about what they think about me because they don't know. They weren't there. And if they think badly about me, then it's not going to fit anyway.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pivot again because I want to give you these little pointers just as we kind of go through because I want to make sure that we're clear. So I'm loving that you're practicing vulnerability. So tell me, like, what's the version? Give me the Twitter version of the story that you're telling about your past relationships. What's the languaging in that? How are you describing that?
Well, usually it comes up in a conversation of, do I have kids or have I been married or something like that?
Yeah.
You say, yes, I was married for 4 years. We're subsequently divorced. And if there's any additional questions or conversation follow up about it, I say, well, we divorced because he was an alcoholic, but certainly there's two sides to every relationship. And so now I'm very interested in a conscious, empowered relationship where there's no codependency.
Okay. So can I give you some feedback on that one?
Yes,
okay.
Please.
So is this, by the way, and I want to put it in context for everyone who's listening, is this like the first date, the second date, the 10th date?
It totally varies. Occasionally first, it depends. It depends on the age of the guy, to be honest. The young guys don't really ask. It sometimes just comes up. And the older guys always ask.
Okay. So here's sort of my advice on that is that I think that you want to omit the alcoholic part until it's somebody who is sort of earned the ability to put you in context.
Right.
And using words like codependent to someone who doesn't even know what that means, or to be like, oh, wow, like that's a lot. It could be a flag, right, for somebody. So I would rather have you say, I was married for 4 years. We got divorced. We were totally living different lifestyles and had different values, and it didn't work out. Because that's true. Right? When you really know somebody and you're really, becoming, and you're interested and you're connected and you're having that, like the 2.0 version or the 3.0 version, then you can really talk about it. But when you're talking about it, I want you to talk about it in terms of like, so I was married to someone who was emotionally unavailable. My part in it was this. He had a drinking problem. He drank too much, however you want to say it. My part of it was this, and here's how I've changed, and here what's going on for me.
Right. Okay.
Because that way you're not using labels. When you say like I was married to an alcoholic, everybody has a version of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so and by the way, who cares about him really for that guy? It's just really about you, right? Getting to know you more. So, and that goes true for everyone who's had a past, right? Like, yeah, it didn't work out. Here was my part in the marriage that didn't work. It was what I played, my role that I played. And here's what I learned. And here's why, like, I'm so excited to be in a new relationship.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. So I know that you said that you've been doing some work with Brene Brown. That you've been studying some Brene Brown.
Yes.
Okay, great. I love her. So there's, and she has a big body of work on vulnerability, obviously. And there's this phrase that she uses that I really like, and it's called spotlighting. Are you familiar with that?
No, that one I don't recognize. It's been a month or two since I finished the last book.
Okay, great. Well, she has a whole training that she does, and I love this concept of spotlighting because it's sort of what you were doing is a great example. And that spotlighting is that lots of us as women, we're like, okay, I'm going to start being vulnerable. Okay, here we go, 1, 2, 3, right? And we almost like we share, and it feels like that in our body where you're like, blah, and so we overshare. Right. It's like someone needs a flashlight. Well, you know how like when you're at you sound younger than me, but you're at a restaurant and you can't read the menu and you put the little light out and then all of a sudden it's like right in someone's face and they're like, blah, turn that down. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And so the saying like, I was married to an alcoholic and now I don't want to be in a codependent relationship or however you said it is literally like putting the flashlight in that guy's face. He's like, whoa, TMI. Right. Too much information.
Yep.
So when you are practicing being vulnerable, you want to make sure that you are not spotlighting. Vulnerability isn't giving too much information. Vulnerability really is, and I think a great way to practice is really about sharing feelings and doing it in a way with a person that has earned it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, she's always talking about when people make it to your Post-it sized list, that those are the people you can share the big vulnerabilities with, but otherwise not so much.
Right. Otherwise it's, saying, this is what happened in my relationship. Here was my 50%. That's totally vulnerable. Right. And here's what I'm interested in. Telling someone, that you're enjoying hearing from them and that you would like to see them again, right? Those are these small vulnerabilities. It's really about sharing who you are without being attached to their perception, right? It's when you don't know the outcome, you still share yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. That makes sense.
Okay. So what would it look like? What is the safety net you could create for yourself if you're on a date with somebody that you like that would allow you to stay out of your head and not shut down?
Ooh, that's a hard question because I think I race ahead into all of the possibilities and all of the future, and then it kind of implodes.
Okay, so that's that going global thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to stay in the country that you're on.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I want you to kind of think about this metaphor of the bar stool because you feel so strongly in those other two areas, right? And those are very concrete examples of your life where you're feeling that. So in that moment, what can you do to stay present in the place that you are? Like on the date, on a walk, at the restaurant, getting a gelato. Like what can you do to presence yourself and stay where you are rather than going global?
Well, so far I try to stay in the present moment as much as I can. And if I think that it's going well and that I might be interested in them or that I'm just having a good time and I'm enjoying the date, then I will try to find a way, just very casually to touch them, like on the knee or, something very non-invasive, but just to participate.
Okay. So presencing yourself by a physical touch is a really great idea. The other thing is that I want for you also to sort of take these guys off the pedestal, right? Because part of the story that you're making up, just because you have chemistry and he's cute and he's nice and all those things we attribute to like, a great guy. The story you're making up is, he could be my boyfriend. He could be my husband. He could be the next guy. You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself when you do that going global.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would it take for you to look at him in a way where you're doing what I call data dating, meaning that you're just collecting data about him. You're not making up a story. You're being curious.
Right. So that's kind of when I step back and don't participate and just compile information. And then I think I seem closed off. So it's hard. I can do one or the other, but I haven't found a way to do both.
Okay. So your brain is looking, literally the way your brain is wired is it's looking for control and safety. So you're doing one extreme and the other, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's, I'm a big fan of metaphors. So one thing that I really encourage you to do is do what I call living in the question mark.
Okay.
Okay, so what that looks like is, and this is the visual that I use, and it really helps a lot of my clients, right? Because usually what we're doing is I want you to imagine there's a phone booth, and you're either on the right side of the phone booth, which is like hanging back, totally not participating, making sure he's safe, or you're on the other side, which is like, oh my God, this could be it. He's amazing. Oh my God, what if he doesn't like me? What if he breaks up with me? What if we get divorced, right? Like, you're totally in that thing. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you're standing in this little phone booth. I think you're not too young to remember what a phone booth looks like.
I'm with you.
Okay, good. And in that phone booth, you're literally like the phone booth in the middle of it. It's the question mark. Okay, now the reason why I put people in the phone booth in the question mark is because you're safe. Like you're still in it. Like you're emotionally safe. Mm-hmm. But you're literally in this moment. This is vulnerability, Julie. This is like possibility. So you're inviting yourself in to like be in the I don't know.
Okay, but something kind of just came up for me.
Okay, tell me.
It's not that I'm afraid that he's going to break up with me or not want to be my boyfriend or we're going to get divorced. It's that I'm afraid I'm going to do something to screw it up.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That just jumped into the front of my mind, and I don't know if it's important, but there you go.
Totally. Okay. So what does screw it up mean, and where did you learn that? Where did you get that? Don't screw it up, Julie, or you screwed this up. Where does that come from?
I don't know. That's always been there, and that has been something that I've had to work really hard in other parts of my life to either move past or get past or override. That's always been there.
Okay, so
for as long as I can remember.
Okay, so did you have a parent who was like, "Don't screw this up," or "Why did you screw this up?" or sibling, somebody who like? Would you have any recollection of the first time, or did you see a parent do it to the other parent? Like, why are you screwing this up?
The only thing I can remember is my mother used to say like she felt like a screw up or she didn't want to screw it up or something like that. But I don't remember anything specific with me. Okay. But my mother is a lot like me. And she worried a lot and she would take things really personally. And I struggle with some of those same tendencies. Mm. So I don't know if it was like just some sort of almost environmental conditioning that I wasn't even consciously aware of.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, absolutely. And I asked this question, not for you to choose like which parent was your favorite. It's not about that, but typically in how our unconscious thoughts get formed in our experiences, there's usually a parent that we really relate to, that is like quote unquote our parent, our favorite parent, the one that gets us. So were you aligned with your mom when you were younger?
Yeah, I would say so. My dad worked a lot, and my mother took time off to spend with me when I was really young. And when I was a teenager, I mean, we fought, but we got along pretty well, and we're still very good friends.
Okay. So often what happens is that we take on the beliefs and patterns of a parent so that we can get validation, so that we can make that parent feel loved, so that we get the love that we want from them by saying, I'm like you, now like love me, give me attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes sense to me that you sort of took that on and own that and now have internalized that yourself. I call it, if people have been listening, you know, we could call that the negative internalized parent voice, right? Like, I don't want to screw this up. I'm afraid I'm going to screw this up. I'm worrying about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of that's like a whole other conversation.
Right.
Right. And what I want you to really understand is, so when you're in that phone booth and you have that, you know, I don't want to screw it up voice, the one really great question you can ask yourself is, in the context of, this is something that I learned as a very small child. It's not really necessarily the truth. It just feels like my truth.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions you can ask yourself when you get that, God, don't screw it up voice is, how true is that really?
Yeah, I like that.
So if I ask you that, you know, how true is that really, that you're going to screw it up? Like, if he's really the right guy, you're going to screw it up. How true is that really?
Well, to be honest, in my experience, I think it's only true if I make it into a self-fulfilling prophecy, to be honest.
Of course. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's your safety. It's just like overworking, right? It's just
Yep.
like it's how we define ourselves impacts what we do and how we do it.
Yes.
Okay. So the story you make up about how you're defining yourself will in fact impact what you do and how I do it. So when you're in that question mark, in that phone booth, right? Being vulnerable, being neutral, because you're not being in control. How could you define yourself that would be helpful for you? And think about the other two legs of the bar stool, because that's authentic Julie.
I would like to define myself as open to possibilities.
Okay, can I build on that from what I already know about you?
Yes.
I am a strong, confident woman open to possibilities.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay. So every time you're in that question mark and you feel vulnerable, this is like Pinocchio's nose growing, right? It's like the third leg will get bigger and stronger if you stand in that question mark of possibility and you go, I'm a strong, confident woman and I'm open to possibility. I'm in a new country.
There we go.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So what's your takeaway from our session today?
A lot of takeaway. I learned that I'm more afraid to be vulnerable because I might screw things up, and that I know that that's more likely a self-fulfilling prophecy than an actual right type of principle. And so instead of focusing on not screwing something up, I'm going to remember that I'm a strong, confident woman who's open to possibilities.
I love that. And that really leaning into your authenticity, because there's areas of your life where you really know you're being authentic. And so defining yourself as you do in those other areas and bringing that, Julie, to the date, just like you are right now with like changing your career a little bit. It's totally scary and you don't know how it's going to turn out, but you're excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You just landed in another country. You can't speak the language and you don't know where you're going to stay tonight, but you're excited about it.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Right? So be in that space, in that question mark of being okay, being out of control, of not having to stand on one side of like, yes, he's my guy, or I need to worry and be skeptical and collect data to the point where I'm not participating.
Right. Cool.
Okay, I love it. So I've got, basically, if you're following along, I got Julie sitting in a bar stool in a phone booth right now in Vienna.
Exactly. Who isn't?
Exactly. Who isn't? So if you see her, wave and tell her good luck and congratulations. Julie, this has been really fabulous, and I have just really enjoyed it. And I invite you to continue to really reflect on this and continue to practice in doing everything that you're doing, because you are totally lovable, you're totally awesome, and you're going to be just fine.
Thank you so much, Marni.
All right, we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for being here in the den.